Hello, welcome to another video where today I'm going to be looking at a couple of exercises that are common with many girls trying to get like the tight butt, and they've got these exercise ideas off the internet, usually from Instagram and even YouTube, where they're just trying to target the butt with as many things as they can, believing that if they do that they'll get that toned appearance that they're looking for. What I'm going to show you here is a couple of exercises that are, this one in particular is a good exercise, but it's actually turned into a bad one by poor execution. So this is what we see in Pilates a lot. So when they're coming up into the movement, and even when they're coming down, this is what it's often called a pelvic curl. And what it does is it really ruins the stability of the spine, because when your pelvis is in neutral, there's a little gap with your lumbar spine there, and that's normal. That's, if you stand up, you'll be able to, and you stand against the wall, you'll find you'll have a natural curve. That is normal and is meant to keep it. It's never good to get rid of this at any point. Every exercise is always best in neutral, and especially these ones. However, in Pilates, they'll teach people to pull their abs in and flatten their back out. They'll call that imprint. And in this exercise, they'll refer to it as a pelvic curl. All that really does is teach you to lose stability at your lumbar spine and move and actually flexing your spine, which is not a good thing if you ever do a squat or a deadlift or any exercise for that matter, but especially ones that have a lot of stress going through the spine. You actually don't want to lose it. You want to keep that neutral. And in this exercise, the glutes should just be powering you up and not overarching at the top, but not flexing at the bottom. All right, so when Kim's coming up, we just want to see her come straight up and not excessively squeezing here. This is where we'll see the excessive squeeze create too much extension and the abs pushing out and away. All right, so that's probably where the pelvic curl part comes in, where they shouldn't be doing that, but they ruin it at the bottom. All right, so when they come down, this is where they're sort of taught to roll their spine down, so that one by one, and that's just crazy. It's just not a good idea to ever do that. Just come down into neutral and then come back up in neutral. If you do that, and you'll have a nice straight line. Sometimes it might even be a little bit less. I don't mind that. I just don't want to see ever that. All right, and never come down and do this rolling thing where you're going into that posterior tilt. Just stay neutral. All right. That's where we see hip grip. So you'll get hip impingements are very likely from that, and bulging disc is especially likely from that. So if you have got any of those two things, you would never apply that strategy to this movement ever. All right. So that's the hip extension, which is a great glute exercise. It's just ruined, as we've explained. This next one is the horse stance, or bird dog, as it's sometimes, or quadruped even. And this is the common way that we see many girls doing this. And again, great exercise turned bad, and yet this, like excessive lifting up of the leg here to try and target the glutes. If that's okay, if you were able to keep this in neutral, but you can actually see, like even the creases on her top here, just how much compression is going into the spine here. She's basically, just like the last one, sacrificed the stability of the lumbar spine to do more here. All you need is a lot of reps of this to end up in a bad way. So just watch how when she kicks that leg up, just how much her spine has to crunch itself, and even her neck sort of moving with it as well. It's a terrible way of executing this movement. So the better way to do it is just to push the leg out horizontally. All right, and then if you're adding the opposite arm to it, you're still going to be getting glute activation from hip extension. We've got a lot more going on with the core here because the other arm is off the ground. I like to place a tennis ball on their back, or a stick if I'm with them, to actually get them to feel what neutral is like. So I would say find neutral by just gently rolling your pelvis backward and forward, and then me sort of placing my hand in there and say, this is neutral. I want you to keep this exactly the same. And that's where the tennis ball is handy, because the tennis ball will roll off if they fall out of neutral at any point. Right, you can sort of see there she's minimal movement compared to the one from before where it was really crunching. So she's doing a much better job there. All right, so this is a great glute exercise, just ruined from just overdoing it and really trying to crunch everything all the time. Now the next one is sort of like one of these sort of leg lifting things. I really don't get these exercises. You know, they're sort of taken from the clam with hip abduction, and then this one's an adduction, so it's not even a glute exercise anyway, but it's just believing that if you sort of tone the area with a specific exercise, it reduces its size or it gets smaller, and none of those things really work ever. This last one, so these three, I'm not spending much time on them because I think most people are familiar with the danger of them or how they're ineffective anyway. This one's another example of like what we just saw before, where there's just a huge amount of crunching of the lumbar spine here in order to just get extra extension. So they're getting extra extension at the expense of their spine. It's just crazy. You just never would want to do that. You know, when you're running that, you want to try and maintain neutral as much as possible. So what should you do instead? Well, there's many exercises, but two of the best ones are just the normal deadlift. Nothing fancy here, just traditional deadlift. Really, in that position right now, the glutes are loaded up, and see how her back's in quite a neutral position as opposed to all these other ones we've seen. It's just neutral. It has to be. The load is, if she goes out of neutral by flexing, so flexing would be hunching, she's going to hurt her back. If she overextends it, she's going to hurt her back. So just neutral, and the load sort of teaches you that. But this is a huge exercise for the posterior chain. This is why it's such a good exercise, and it teaches everything to work together in a perfect harmony. You know, this is the, you know, you can really go quite heavy on this. Just that this position just does so much for you that it beats all the other exercises in one go. You could waste your time with those other exercises and just do a handful of sets of these and you'd be right. Probably the only one that's better than that is the single leg one, because the single leg one has a lot more going on, because obviously you're unstable, but that single leg, even though it's exactly the same position as the other one, there's now this sort of movement where you could fall out either side. So to control that, obviously the core is being worked hard, but the glute medius on the stance leg is really highly activated once we move into single leg stance. That's why you'll always feel the glutes way more on the single leg than a two leg. If I just spend a lot of time with these two, and obviously with squats, lunges, step-ups even, and several of the other leg movements, I'll get exactly what I want in terms of my glute strength. All right, so I don't need to isolate it. I only would isolate if there's something wrong, if there's an injury, but I wouldn't. The horse stance one and the hip extension probably my preferred choice. Maybe sometimes the clam, but not very often. All right, and then as soon as I can, I'll be trying to get to these movements because they just do so much more for me, or for everyone. All right, so these are this is a good video for any of the girls out there trying to sort of like annihilate their butt to make it toned. It's not going to work. You need to eat better anyway and reduce your food to really tone up. But the strengthening really comes down to these big lifts, and they avoid also the dysfunction that we see with bulging discs and hip impingement created from those other exercises. All right, so I hope you enjoy this video. Make sure you check the description underneath the video here, because I put a lot of links to articles that expand upon what I say in these videos, because I only sort of briefly touch on them. So make sure you check them out, and it will help you to join the dots of the things that I'm trying to say, and also give you other exercises that I haven't shown you here, because there's many others. I just don't have the time to put them all in. All right, so check that out below, and if you have any problems, get in touch with me. All right, and I'll see you on the next time.